culture of the period, of the movies, of the music, and you'll hear that music throughout the book. There's actually, the publishers suggested, why don't you put together a playlist? So if you go looking for it, you can find a playlist, and you can click it. If you have Spotify, you can hear Glenn Miller, you can hear Benny Goodman, and my daughter is laughing in the background because that's the music she's been hearing in our house for about 30 years. And also the movies of the time. As you read this book, and by the way, the cover is in black and white for a reason. That is to say that it's in black and white to suggest to you that you're about to step into a shimmering black and white movie. There's a blurb on here. No, they didn't use your quote, Joe. Joe Finder over there, ladies and gentlemen, the New York Times best-selling author of House on Fire and other great novels. Joe got it. He got the sense of that you will feel as if you're sliding down into a 1940s movie when you read this.
It's here.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, his blurb.
Absolutely splendid.
Yeah, you can read it. I would look egotistical if I read it, but you can read it. No.
Absolutely splendid. December 41 is a cinematic thriller that takes us across the United States in the first days after Pearl Harbor. Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Check is in the mail. So, those are the elements that I'm working with. And for a long time in the preparation and in the writing of this book, I would be watching YouTube, I would be reading the newspapers of the time, I would be studying books about Churchill and Roosevelt, and I followed their relationship as it expands across the 2.5-week period. Churchill, of course, desperate to get to Washington, desperate to get into FDR's ear, because he knows that until the Germans declare war on the United States, or FDR can move the United States in that direction, that the United States may entirely devote its efforts to defeating Japan before Germany. On the December 9th, FDR will give one of his fireside chats. Somebody told me just last night that people think FDR would give a fireside chat every week, and in fact, he only gave 12 in the 12 years of his presidency. And one of them, on December 9th, he said to the American people, it will behoove us to defeat the Japanese Empire and turn in the other direction to find that Germany and Italy are in control of the rest of the world. So he was moving Americans in that direction. But on December 11th, Adolf Hitler basically took the bat out of his hands. Hitler decided that he would declare war on the United States, and he gathered 2,000 Sieg Heiling Nazis in the Kroll Opera House beneath the giant eagle and swastika, complained about that man who, while he sits by his fireside and gives his speeches, has contempt for our German soldiers fighting the Bolsheviks in the fire and ice of Russia, the man who is responsible for this war. And I've listened to this speech, and I don't speak German, but Hitler's voice is a deep and throbbing instrument of darkness. If you listen to those speeches, you don't even need to know what the words are. And it was an amazing experience in writing this book that I was able to spend so much time seeing these people, looking them in the eye, and hearing their voices, and being able to get closer to them. Hitler declares war on the United States. Churchill immediately says, I'm going. I have to get over there and talk to FDR right now. And so on Saturday, after Pearl Harbor, FDR climbs aboard the HMS Duke of York battleship, and they steam across to Washington, D.C. Churchill calls it the worst week of the war for him, because he's seasick. He's taking Mothersill's seasick remedy the whole way across. He's trying to stay in touch with the government in London, and they went through all kinds of twists and turns in order to maintain radio silence and at the same time continue to communicate. And he reads C.S. Forester novels and shows movies in the wardroom at night, including The Seahawk with Errol Flynn on the Saturday night before they get to Washington. And as the story is told, he's sitting there right in the front, and as Errol Flynn leads the attack onto the Spanish galleon at the end, he leaps up and shouts, "The British are winning! The British are winning!" As I said in the book, he could summon boyish enthusiasms even in the midst of the most dangerous and difficult of times. The battleship arrives in Norfolk, and it's Monday, December 22nd. They arrive at Norfolk, Virginia. The plan was for FDR to travel, Churchill to travel by boat up the Chesapeake and the Potomac as far as the battleship would go, which probably wouldn't be much farther than Annapolis, and then by boat on to Washington. He says, I can't do that. I won't get there till tomorrow. We need to go now. And so he gets aboard a plane with his whole staff. And it's an amazing moment because they have been, this isn't even in the book, don't worry. He's covering his ears now. This is all, let me explain. If I'm going to take a shot at the two greatest heroes of World War II, I need to understand them. So that's why I studied these guys so closely, and I wrote a lot of these scenes, later took them out because I wanted to have a thriller with more momentum. So what I'm basically telling you right now are about all of the things that I learned that I cut out of the novel. So you don't have to go like this. And this has been written about in The Splendid and the Vile by Eric Larson as well. When they start in the small airplane that holds, I think, 8 people, they're flying up the Chesapeake and then up the Potomac. Lord Moran, who was Churchill's doctor, would later write about the fact that they were looking out the windows onto a landscape that was not shrouded in blackness, a society that was still alive, because of course they've come from England where it's been dark every night in order to confuse the Nazi bombers. And they spoke, all of them on the plane that night, about the fact that they had come to the bastion of freedom, and here they would find strength and sustenance and help. The plane lands at the Anacostia Naval Air Station. Churchill bounds off the plane before anybody else, and FDR is standing there leaning against his limousine to welcome Churchill to America. As Lord Moran would later write, I can understand why Churchill always spoke of Roosevelt as such a big man, because he had a huge head. He did, however, have no legs to speak of. And he was leaning, and then they helped him into the car. They went up to the White House, which was a short distance away, took a photograph on the front lawn. Now that Churchill was there and safe, everybody could relax. So they think. In my novel, they shouldn't be relaxed, because the photograph that was taken is published the next day across the country. Churchill is on the left, FDR is standing on the right, and Captain Beardsall, who would help Roosevelt to get around, is holding Roosevelt's arm. And that photograph would inspire people for the next 6 months, which were very, very dark indeed. But the German, who does make it to Washington, and I'm not giving anything away, how you know he's going to get to Washington. If he doesn't get to Washington, I'm not doing my job.
I'm a credulous reader.
It's the big, well, okay, it's the biggest setup it's a perfect setup. And if you're writing an assassination thriller, there are not many rules, but one of them is that the bad guy has to get close.